can be mortals.
Welcome, mere mortal lights, to an episode of the Mere Mortals Musings here, live on the 26th of the 1st, 2025. Indeed, it is Australia Day. Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. We have myself, Kyrin, here on this side of the microphone, and a blank space on the other side. Juan is not here. I am actually doing a solo episode, so Mere Mortals Conversations, it is a monologue conversation this time. Now, the reason for this is that I took a whole bunch of notes from a book review I did of Devil Take The Hindmost by Edward Chancellor, and I just couldn't fit them all into that book review. It would have been ridiculously long. And I was thinking like, okay, yeah, maybe I can have a conversation with Juan about all of these notes and really talk about financial bubbles. And the thing that with that was just because I took so many notes, and you're going to see it on your screen shortly, whether you're watching this as a video or later as a podcast episode, and you're in a decent app which has podcasting chapters, then you're going to realize like, okay, Kyrin would have probably just been talking this whole time. Now, I was meant to do the solo episode last week because Juan was going to be away anyway. Plans changed, and we did a normal episode together. But yeah, it's occurred this week, so we'll jump into it. Context, I guess, for this was that, as I mentioned, was related to the book. And I've split this up into four main sections of the financial progression of what is a financial bubble, how do they occur, the bubble like growing and strengthening, the popping zone, and then the aftermath that you'll see. And then I'll also have a little bit of a section of scam signs, and then that'll be the first half of this. I'll go into the Boostagram Lounge, and then the second half is, I think there's going to be a very big financial bubble around the crypto/AI industry in this next coming 6 to 18 months. So I wanted to go over all of that. So let's just jump into this. So we are, Devil Take The Hindmost book, lots and lots of notes, and in particular, it was around financial bubbles. So I'll try and list them all off of the top of my head. We had the Tulip Mania in the Dutchland, in the Netherlands. So that was I think that was the 1500s, 1600s period. We had Railway Mania in the UK, which was the 1700s, probably 1800s. We had the Gilded Age of Mark Twain's renown, so that was in the late 1800s. In America, we had a gold rush, also in America. That was probably more earlier before that. We had the Roaring Twenties, also in America. We had the financial bubbles of the Japanese Zytec companies, and that was in the late 1880s, and there was a couple more. I think there was 8 or 9 all up. So I'm going to be referencing a lot of things that happen in these bubbles. I won't get all of these exactly right because unfortunately I don't have the book on me at this moment, so I can't reference exactly, but you get the picture. Okay, bubble beginnings. So it all begins with capital and liquidity, essentially. That seemed to be the big driver of all of these bubbles. When people are moving money around, that is, and have kind of excess money to move around, that's when they'll go into more speculative plays. And we see right at the start of that book, it was talking about the differences between gambling, investing, and speculating. And boy, those boundaries pretty loose. They're pretty similar. So it tends to go in cycles ranging of multi-year, if not decade length. Basically these bubbles would usually go over like a 10-year period. And I'm not going to be talking about such as the 2008 financial bubble and crisis because the book was published well before that. Another one it talked about was the kind of leading up to the dot-com boom of the kind of 1990s. So that was another one. And it's very intimately linked with governments and large business. And in particular, I think we see the rapidity of like repeated nature of these happening because governments are starting to interfere with business and have a large portion of influence with regards to what is actually happening with businesses, with the economy in general. And whether this be through the printing of money, endorsing of certain industries, of taxes, of tariffs, of whatever it is, the more the government gets involved, the more liquidity and things like that seem to derive from this, and playing with interest rates, all these sorts of things. So that is pretty much the large overarching theme of these. And then we see, I think, the consequences of what happens from this. Now, it's not all of this. A large portion of this is also us humans investing, gambling, speculating, and letting our emotions go crazy ahead of us. And this is why we see these bubbles starting to form. So typically at the bubble beginning, there's usually like a one-off event or discovery. There's something that gets people excited. There is an actual breakthrough of some sort of nature. So if we look, for example, in the 1680s here, we had Captain Phipps and his diving expedition, which was essentially where this guy was a English, maybe he was American born and then came to England, or in any case, he was on an English trawler or an English ship of some sort, and he discovered a sunken Spanish ship, I believe, and in this particular region, and he hauled up a ridiculous amount of gold. Ridiculous. And just with the way that the contract was drawn up, I think 30% of it went to the UK government as a kind of tax, and then the rest he got to split between himself, his men, and investors in the actual ship. And this is where people are like, holy shit, if I put in, I don't know what the £1 was, probably a ridiculous amount of money back then. So, they'd probably talk about shillings or pence or penny. I don't know what they were talking, what number they would be used. But, I could put in this and I could get 5 years worth of wages in this sort of thing. So people would do that. South American independence in the early 1800s, where countries like Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Peru were all gaining independence, and therefore you could then, what was predominantly being extracted by the governments of Portugal, of Spain, and places like that, were now open to actual investors being able to reap those profits instead. We had railways allowing men to reckon distance by hours and minutes instead of time, instead of length, and this was just the productivity gains that can be unlocked by being able to move across physical space in a rapid, short period of time with way less energy expenditure. So there's typically something like that happens. We have these mini bubbles, which form within a larger economic framework. So, as I mentioned, is typically an actual game changer of efficiency and innovation. And this doesn't necessarily need to be of a technological kind. It can be of a structural kind. So we can have, the railroads, the automobiles, for example, but you can also have joint stock companies, a way of capital formation, which was completely unheard of before, of the way humans interact with each other being unlocked. Let's even look at social media and how much value was accrued to these social media companies, which was essentially just allowing humans to talk with each other more efficiently. So sometimes these are sparked by the innovation above, but not necessarily. We then have usually speculation unchecked by government regulation. So if the governments are not clamping down on this industry and it's not heavily regulated, we tend to see a flourishing of activity going there. Now, typically this occurs because the innovation is new, and therefore there's no rules and things set up for it for a government to say, hey, you can do this or you can't do this. So there's a lot of operating in grey, murky areas, which you don't know if they're legal or illegal. And this is sometimes actually fueled by an implicit promise that the government will protect the people if things happen with this, such as the denationalization of the Nikon Telephone and Telegraph to a private company, which occurred in the 1980s, I believe, which was part of the Japanese asset bubble that happened then. So we also see these new and easy opportunities for retail to enter emerging, and whether this be the ease of use, of greater access, or perhaps even more information. So, for example, we had daily newspapers providing info for the South Sea bubble, which was a company in England in, I'm going to say that 1600s, 1700s period. One of the first companies, which I guess was a joint stock company. It wasn't the very first, but I think it was right up there, where you would actually get equal ownership of this via shares. And you could, because there was always private companies before this where people agreed, okay, you get this portion, I get this portion, this sort of thing. But I think it's when it's starting to have those larger structural frameworks of, okay, this is what a share is. I own a portion of this company if I hold this piece of paper, if I'm on this registry. And that unlocks a lot of, trust, for example. If you can automate away trust, or if you can store trust in a piece of paper rather than in complex human interactions where I need to speak with someone for 50 hours before I trust them, then that opens up a lot of innovation as well. So we have also railways birthing stock exchanges, the ticker tape during the Gilded Age, where traders could instantly see the prices, things like this, radio programs during the Roaring Twenties, internet birthing online brokers and internet forums for communication. All of these sorts of things tend to play into the bubble beginning, and which will reinforce what happens a little bit later on, which gets into the bubble growing and strengthening period. So this is where I categorize this as, okay, we've had the initial beginnings, and I'm not really going to give time links or things into this. It's kind of going to be a little bit vague in terms of numbers, statistics, and hard concrete data, because all of these were different in their nature. They were very similar in their nature, different in the ways that they played out and indicated. And how can you measure the financial impact of the South Sea bubble compared to Japanese asset prices? Maybe there's some sort of way. The book didn't cover this, so I'm not going to cover it. What we see, okay, in this bubble growing and strengthening period, leverage and credit. Boy, oh boy, do we see a bunch of that. So the South Sea was giving loans to people and deferred payments to buy more of their stock. So they were essentially like giving people money to go out and buy more of their stock. Consumers in 1920s America, so this is the Roaring 20s, were buying 40% of the department store goods on credit. So when you see that credit, i.e. the conditions for loaning out money to people with the understanding that they are going to then pay you back interest on that credit. So I loan out $100 and they will eventually give me that $100 back plus $10 in the meantime of interest. We see a lot of that going on. Margins loans galore in this era as well. And then leverage is essentially when someone can have a little bit of capital, say $100, but then they are able to essentially invest $1,000 worth of or into something, with the understanding that if that $1,000 dips by 10%, their $100 just gets taken from them, they get liquidated, all these sorts of things. So we really, really see in these periods leverage and credit for not only individuals, but larger companies and businesses and even governments get notched up on a scale. People are certainly not in the worrying about money sort of stage. It's more like, I've got a bunch of money. I want to make money from my money. What can I do with this? We see a lot of lingo and buzzwords starting to emerge. And this is attaching the hot new thing to anything would kind of make it pop off. And we see this in a lot of these bubbles. When if it was a railway company in England during the railway mania, they overproduced railways by so much. Everyone was putting a railway anywhere that they could. And if you said like, oh, there's this new railway company, people were just coming and buying it instantly and buying stock in it instantly. The lingo is closely related where behavior seen before is reworded. So bull and bear in the 1800s really started to take off. Jobber for stockbrokers, things related to coffee shops as well. One of the things I found really, really interesting in this book was this. There was this Iomega company, and I'd never heard of this before. And this was in the 1990s, and this company had something to do with zip drives. So it was, this was back in the days when megabytes were big were big numbers, and I don't know exactly what the company did, but this was when internet online forums were really starting to pick off and becoming a thing. And people were memeing this company before memeing was even known to be a thing. And they would be talking about how Iomega was, going to pump, how it was going to do this, going to do that. They had some clever wordplay of the Iomega name. And I just found that really fascinating. Like, oh, wow, you look nowadays and say, what was that? I think it was GMC, the GameStop, became a meme stock that retail traders were doing. Man, get with the times, GMC, because Iomega was doing it, 2 decades before it was cool. We have ridiculous claims starting to emerge during this period as well. Here's a couple of my favorites. Employee, we're going to, this bit, employ capital profitably without the slightest risk of loss. Wait, that sounds like a good thing. I wouldn't mind getting in on that. And this was a pawnbroker talking about how they were going to undercut other usurious pawnbrokers. So usurious as in they're loaning things out on interest to people. And that was how their kind of tagline for why you should invest with their pawnbroking business. Their new one, which had, from what I could tell, no new technology during that period. That was in England in the I think it was in the period where the joint stock companies were becoming a thing. So 1700s, 1800s, somewhere around then. We're going to get profits exceeding the power of calculation. And this was due to the amount of deaths that a mortuary business was seeing, and to stop body snatches happening. And they were going to employ some sort of new technology or something to stop body snatches, and then this would allow the mortuary business to get ridiculous, uncalculable profits and straight up hype. So during the American independence, people were saying that they were stumbling over leftover gold, that they'd just have the gold nuggets and things that they were finding in these South American mines were so big that you could literally stumble over a gold nugget. That the worry that the market is about to be flooded with precious metals, so that gold and silver would just instantly go to zero because of how much they were getting from these South American mines. We see a lot of these just ridiculous claims where you go, okay, really? But that doesn't really make sense. But it's said with such as enthusiasm, zeal, that it tends to go over, and that other people get trapped up in this. We also have ideas coming out the wazoo linked to ridiculous claims. Here's some of my favorites that I got from this was people were talking about how they could create a really profitable business renting umbrellas in England. Makes sense, England's rainy all the time. How they could pipe seawater to London, how they could drain the Red Sea for Moses' jewels. I like that one. That was pretty good. But probably my favorite was that they were going to get cannonballs from the seabed near Trafalgar because the government has no claim on them, people. Like, it's just free money. It's free real estate, And they were going to essentially get the lead from these cannonballs and sell them. And there was actually a thing called canon law, which was related to because once they're fired, you have no claim over them. So the English government has, before they're fired, they're owned by the English government. After they've been fired, they are free game to anyone who goes to the battlefield afterwards and collects them. And so they were going to dredge the sea near Trafalgar to get all of this. So there's a lot of ideas, and these aren't necessarily all bad. They are some that might be ahead of their time. There's some that might seem ridiculous, but are actually visionary. And it's very, very hard to sort out in this period of bubble growing and strengthening what's real and what's fantasy, or what is going to become real, but might take a decade. So yeah, this is something to look out for. Hucksters, this is people who talk a charming game, but when analyzed, don't make much sense. If you've read, I can't remember if it's The Black Swan or one of other Nicholas Nassim Taleb's books, where he talks about the intellectual yet idiot. So these are people who are smart, but they're almost too smart for their own good, and so they miss like the base core reality of how things actually are, and so they can't explain their thesis in a simple manner. So they might be a mathematician, have an intellectual background. George Hudson, the railway king during the UK Railway Mania, was this kind of like pushy, underhanded dude who could talk a slick game. Anyone associated with long-term capital management falls into this camp, which was a company in the US who were essentially made up from these Ivory League intellectual tower people who said like, yep, we've Myron Scholes, we've got this equation, we won the Nobel Prize, we're going to do this arbitraging company, it's going to work perfectly, it's going to be amazing. And they ended up just busting hard because they weren't as smart as they thought they were. So hucksters, definitely, hucksters, it's hard to know, because once again, there's some who are flashy and really in your face, and you're like, give you creepy vibes. And then there's others who are like the more intellectual. They seem smart, but how smart are they actually? Once again, these things aren't easy to tell. They do take a little bit of time to try and mingle out. Influencers. You think influencers are a recent innovation? Wrong. Influencers have been around for millennium probably. So these are people of note who attach their reputation to projects. So we really saw this with politicians, with kings, with writers in the earlier bubbles. We're going to see some interesting one coming up, but I'll talk about that later. Japanese recruit Cosmos scandal is something worth checking out, which was they were paying off top ministers to delay unfavorable legislation against their company. This was a Japanese company, and so they would essentially give them stock to be able to say like, hey, here's some stock, just delay this legislation that's going to actually really hurt our core business. That was common. Most notable, I think, was the English ones of the kind of South Sea Company, where the king at the time was getting stock in this. The Prime Minister, the top people in the UK government and Parliament were all getting stock in this company, and it's so gross when you see it, but it's underhanded. That's what happens a lot, and it's like, oh, free money, sure, I'll take it. Will this cause a conflict of interest? Nah, surely not. Okay, overvaluing the future, undervaluing the present value. So typically using math with inaccurate assumptions to produce a veneer of professionality and plausibility. And this can be predicting future growth, adoption, etc., etc. A good example of this was John Law. So he was the establisher of France's first national bank and proponent of the fractional reserve banking used. He wasn't the inventor of fractional reserve banking. That's probably been going on since Egyptian times or even before that. But certainly of using a national bank to do national fractional reserve he was right up there with one of the first, and he used his ideas and power to create the Mississippi Company and later the Mississippi Bubble, another bubble I haven't talked about, but this was when France owned the New Orleans area. My American history is not the greatest with regards to what happened with France and there, but essentially he tied France's national economy to a Mississippi company, and boy, oh boy, did that go bad. And for example, he guaranteed and maintained a 4% dividend for the company, despite shares rising from 500 to 10,000 livres, whatever that is, whatever currency that was. And you know, it's like, okay, sure, you could maintain 4% at a $500 share, but when it gets up to ridiculous levels, okay, well, where's all this extra money coming from? And there's always a circular thing. We'll talk about that shortly as well. We see new entrants start participating when the bubble is growing and strengthening. Average people on the street in English bubbles due to coffee shop brokers. So these were just places where you could go get coffee, and you could also do a little bit of share trading on the side. Women in the Roaring 20s due to emancipation, so they could then have access to their own bank accounts. It was culturally acceptable for them to go and buy stocks and things like this. We also see the Japanese housewives during the Babaru Kaiki. Babaru being bubble, Kaiki I believe is their term for economy. And the Plaza Accord and crazy tax laws just essentially meant that Japanese people needed to invest, otherwise they were screwed. And we see notable characters coming up. Hetty Green, the Witch of Wall Street, was, and she wasn't, you know, she was actually a really good investor. But she was just a woman who, during the Roaring 20s, made a boatload of money and was really good at what she did. Another one, Nui Onue, that's a Japanese name. Gonna definitely not pronouncing that right. And well, she was good at what she did until she wasn't, and essentially she was a influencer / restaurateur who got all of these crazy wealthy Japanese people, whether they be the Yakuza or prime ministers or top company executives, coming to her restaurant, where she would get shares, advice from them, essentially insider trading. And I believe she also did some really illegal shit by getting them to print off fake notices or letters showing that she had assets which she actually didn't have. Naughty. And yeah, she eventually got caught. Complex financial shenanigans by large corporations to and sorry, what Juan says here, the concept of fractional reserve banking evolved over time and doesn't have a single inventor. It emerged as an unintended result of practices used by early goldsmith and bankers during the mid-ages. There we go. So, yep, that has been around for a while. Thank you, Juan, for the clarification in the chat there. We see with these complex financial shenanigans, they artificially show better numbers. Sometimes this is outright fraud. Sometimes there's grey murky areas. There's a whole new suite of derivatives, on derivatives, for derivatives, to derivatives. You could derive away your your life, essentially. And a derivative is where it's something that tracks an underlying asset, but not perfectly, and it'll give you more upside, but more downside. So just trying to think an example off the top of my head. I could buy I could invest directly into a let's say I think there's going to be a copper boom or something like that. I could invest directly into copper, or I could be into a company which heavily uses copper or sells copper probably, and short maybe a company that is heavily into copper and needs it for their business, because their profit's going to dwindle because they have to spend more money to buy copper because it's getting more expensive. And then I could, instead of shorting that company, I could, one of their suppliers, I could, all these sorts of things where it's like, this is going to impact this, which will impact this even higher and go over here. banking, financial services, though, it's you don't need much infrastructure to just lend out money to people, but you need a whole lot of infrastructure and people to do all the derivative trading and arbitraging and all that sort of stuff. So we see a lot of that happening. Is sometimes linked to relaxed government rules. Great example of this. This one's wild. Japanese companies in 1980 were allowed to value investments at book price or market value. So if they bought something on their financial services sheet, on their listing of annual reports and stuff, say they bought some of a subsidiary company or some company elsewhere, and they bought it and it goes up in price. Awesome. They could show in their financial reports, hey, we own this much of this thing and it's at this current market value. Perfect. But if it went down, they could just show it at the price that they bought it at and say, hey, we're still neutral, even though they could be 80% in the red. That seems to me to defy logic, but of why you would want that. Nevertheless, that happened, related to complex financial shenanigans. This one I wasn't really expecting, which was that in real life meetups explode. So parties, particularly, if people are making money, if things are going good, you start to see more parties. But you'll see this becoming talked about in dinner, in golf parties, on the street. Investment clubs were created in many of these bubbles for people to pool funds to get in on the action. And so when you start seeing this confluence of, okay, it's a financial bubble, but it actually leaking out into in real life behavior of people actually physically go into spaces to talk about this thing, or it being a dominant conversation in their normal areas, that's when you start to see, okay, like this thing's really starting to grow and strengthen, because word of mouth, people influence other people. And then we have circularity. So this is perhaps what leads it to the bubble metaphor, which is it needs a rather self-reinforcing tight mechanism, because everything is ultimately circular. I buy an apple, which affects my grocer, which affects the daughter who goes to private school in this area, which raises the wage of this teacher who taught this singer, who influenced this person to get into media, who then watches the Mere Mortals and sends in a donation support. Okay, well, that is very much circular. What we're talking about is this really tight one. So the South Sea scheme of high share price leading to profits for all, and they had some sort of mechanism there where it was just really tightly reinforcing. Japanese warrant bond prices drove share price, which drove warrant bond price. When you see this really tight feedback mechanism, which once again is not necessarily illegal, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but which can lead to really rapid proliferation of things. I just did a book review on The Emperor of All Maladies. Cells are meant to replicate. There's nothing wrong with replicating cells. You want that. It's when they have this unbridled growth where it just keeps going and going. That's when you have cancer. And that is certainly is not a good thing, because it's unsustainable and will kill you in the end. Not good. Finally, the popping zone of the bubble. And this is where people are leaving their jobs, we'll see, to pursue profitable business elsewhere. Many examples of common laborers becoming traders across time. A good one, Benjamin Disraeli, who would go on to become the future Prime Minister of the UK, I think twice, left his law job to lose bigly gambling on Latin American mining companies during their independence period. So, and he then had to subsequently turn to writing, he was a very good writer, journalist, which then got him into the upper echelons of power. You have this interconnectedness contributing to linked failures. So once you see one failure or bank run, you better believe that the rehypothecation of leverage of this derivative being linked to this thing is going to spread. The panic of 1893 during the Gilded Age, for example, is where you see Argentine coups or coups, and European panic selling of USA stocks really influencing the US. Why, and which would then lead to panic selling in the US. Why would Europeans have anything to do with what happens in American stocks? Or a crisis in Europe affecting something in America? It doesn't really matter. These things are linked, and even though perhaps they shouldn't be, they are. And so we see these resulting failures or wild price swings, typically downwards. When the vast bulk of people subconsciously, and I put the subconsciously because I think they might not know exactly what they're doing, but I think everyone, just through living life for, let's just say 18 years, you become an adult, that things just don't happen. You can't just get your way, that things just don't materialize out of thin air. You get a feeling of this, and there's probably because you play some games in school. I remember playing Pogs and stuff like that, trading them as a kid, and then there was Pokemon cards. And I think you subconsciously know, like, you can't just have infinite growth. Like, it just doesn't happen like that. Yet, when they're gambling, they don't care about the long-term outlook. They just don't want to be the sucker. Hence the title of the name, Devil Take The Hindmost. It's like, as long as I'm not the one holding the bag at the end, that's okay. And what you see is there's no numbers or rational historical arguments will convince them out of this. Which one then subsequently leads to extreme numbers, illogical behavior. And we saw this when price to earnings of Japanese shares were actually rising when additional dilutive shares were being sold or added. And it was the actual news that, hey, we're releasing more shares to the public. Everyone's getting diluted. Everyone who already has shares getting diluted, yet the price to earnings were going. It's just like, how does this stuff make sense? It doesn't make sense. But when people are irrational, exuberant, they throw more money in, and hey, everything does make sense. Dodgy arbitrage happens when people are arbing between structurally iffy side projects. So we saw this with railway stags, and this is selling unofficial scripts, seeing some lingo in here as well, at a hope for premium. And this was once again, kind of complicated stuff of people just doing some arbitrage, but the arbitrage was very much linked to the price being continually be high for the buyers of these things. And so it's like, yeah, technically you're doing arbitrage, but man, that thing can just go away in a second. And if you're holding the shares, then boy, you're screwed. And there was some really crazy stuff where to buy into a company, you would have to pay them interest. I can't remember why that was happening, but there was essentially a whole bunch of people who were buying, stock of this company's, hoping it would go up to then be able to sell on later. But to hold that stock, they had to pay interest to the company, which was just wild. Like, boy, is that risky behavior. Typically, in the popping zone, some negative trigger linked to the actual underlying asset will happen. So there'll be a tulip fungus or just general life interest rate rise, revolution, or war. It can be very tenuous, this trigger. It can come out of nowhere. There can be bigger things which you'd think were worse off, and the market will just steamroll over it. And then right near the top, there's usually something which is like, oh, that's bad, but it's not necessarily that bad a thing, and then everything will tank. And then finally, this time it's different. Belief that the things that were risky or didn't work in the past have changed. We've entered a new era of limitless prosperity. So we could have superior commercial knowledge in 1825, which was the underlying reason that people were saying that this stuff's just going to keep going on. There's the gains, the productivity gains of this commercial knowledge is just going to keep going. New economics of the Federal Reserve System in the 1920s. That's what's going to keep the Roaring Twenties going on. That's why we're not going to have a crash or anything. Wrong, incorrect. And yeah, we really really see the popping happening with a lot of these things. yeah, there's the kind of downplaying of risk of this is usually done by comparison of a risky asset to something safer. Can't remember which period, but stocks as safe as bonds was a mantra that was coming out. Long-term capital management with their highly 200x levered arbitrage, and it's like, nah, this stuff's safe as, bro. This is all good. We see excessive flexing and consumption, galas, diamonds, and dresses during the Gilded Age, golf club memberships, art, and iconic property in the Japanese bubble years. Japanese people were buying, you know, was it Sears Tower or something like that? You know, they were buying famous golf courses because they just had so much money, and were like, we need to put it into something. And it wasn't, and they were buying these things at crazy inflated prices. It's not like we've got so much money, I'm scared this is all going to go away, like let's buy it in something that'll hold value over the long term. No, they were buying at ridiculous prices for flexing. The top of a bull market can actually be predicted shortly after the completion of the world's new tallest building, which was the Erection Index. I'd never heard of this before. Now, the Burj Bingati Jacob and Co residences will be in 2026. This will only be the sixth biggest, and the other bigger one, which is also in Dubai, that's not planned until I think like the late 2020s. So perhaps that is an indication that the coming bull run's not going to actually be as big as, or maybe it'll go longer. Who knows? We'll see. We have loose guns who are eccentric, pulling off crazy numbers. They're genius, obvious by their weirdness, and not simply moral grey areas such as tapping into high-risk capital. There was this guy, Campio, I think he was a Canadian. He was wearing these pork by bowler hats, and this was in the era of American takeover, where people could just get some capital somehow and take over companies way larger than they were to then be able to essentially like sell this on or increase the stock price. Just crazy shit. Even Boesky, and he was one of the influencers for the Greed is Good, Gordon Gekko, was that Wolf of Wall Street or just Wall Street character who did this address to a university and was talking all about this. And you're most credulous when you're happy. So outrageous statements become believable within the realm of possibility. When people are just happy, man, when they're having fun, possible future scenarios feel like right now, and you convince your friends to join in. And that's the word of mouth. Here's a quote. I was made acquainted, and this was a letter from Alexander Pope to Lady Mary Wortley Montagu. I was made acquainted late last night that I might depend upon it as a certain gain to buy of South Sea stock at the present price, which will certainly rise in some weeks or less. I can be as sure of this as the nature of any such thing will allow, from the first and best hands, and therefore have dispatched the bearer with all speed to you. And he sent this to her right near the top of the South Sea bubble. Alexander Pope, bad man, bad investment for advice to your friend there. Okay, we're gonna leave the aftermath, the things like that to afterwards. This episode's already getting pretty long, so I'm gonna try and speed run a lot of these things. This is the Boostagram Lounge. This is where we thank the people who have helped contribute to the Mere Mortals to support us financially in this section. And we actually, after a couple of weeks of sad puppies, we've got some Boostagrams coming in, which is absolutely amazing to see. So I have to thank two people this week, which one being Mr. Lyceum, and this is our friend Martin Lindeskog from the Secular Foxhole, and I think he's got a couple other podcasts. And he was sending a couple of things in. So he said, Juan and Kyrin, best premises with your new podcast. I hope your puppy will be happy. He's a very happy puppy right now, man. I have now streamed 10 Satoshis per minute, so you should receive around 600 sats. And then he sent this Boostagram of 2,222, a row of ducks, is a super comment with payment on your episode on truefans.fm, Martin Lindeskog, and then Lyceum at truefans.fm. And he did indeed send in a 2,222 Boostagram as a super comment. So thank you very much, Martin. Very, very much appreciated. It's good to see that someone's still using TrueFans and testing that out. I will get back onto that someday. I'm just busy, man. I just got other stuff going on. We also have Peter, who comes in. He says, when the Hosky maker said okay to listing his tokens on an exchange and provided the exchange with additional Hoskies, it also graduated to full-fledged scam. Please correct me if I misremembered that interview. I need to go back and re-listen to those. I don't know for sure if in the interviews that I had with them, if they had done that, but they certainly have done that as of now. So if that is what qualifies as a scam, then Hosky is a scam. I don't know if that is what qualifies. I always thought as long as they're not marketing and advertising themselves as anything other than what they are, then that's fine. And if you're buying into that, then that's what you're getting into. You know what? I had this whole section on scam signs, but this episode's getting pretty long, so maybe I'll save that section and I can talk about one with this, because there is a point where I could see what you're saying as a scam. Maybe there's something I'll ask Hosky himself, because I am planning on chatting with him again and grill him a bit on that. So that yeah. In any case, message received. Won't talk about Hoskies. If you want to earn a shirt as well, there's just a reminder. If you send in 100,000 Satoshis across, I said any of the 3 shows, I got to bump that up to like 5 shows now. We'll send you a Mere Mortals t-shirt your way. So, Peter has already got his. Martin is now 2,222 closer to getting towards that shirt. So yeah, in that case, we very much appreciate everyone sending that in. If you want more details on how to do this, meremortalspodcast.com/support. Very much thank you. And that was sent using Fountain. So Fountain, true fans, very, very solid podcasting apps where you can also get the chapter art and all these things that I'm talking about on here. Okay, we're 45 minutes in, and I want to try and keep this to like an hour and 15 max. So let's go through these next sections about the crypto and AI bubble that I think is coming up. I do indeed have my Banana Zone t-shirt on, and you know what? I'll even put on my Banana Zone hat at the same time here. Not sure how long that'll stay on. It's pretty hot in this room. So I think there's going to be a crypto AI bubble coming this year, and here's my reasons why. I'm taking the hat off. It's way too hot. Capital and liquidity. Looks like we're heading into a period where liquidity injections are needed. US dollar is super high. Countries around the world are suffering they're feeling the pinch because of this high US dollar. Add on to this interest rates probably needing to be cut for an extra boost. I hate that I have to learn this. I hate that I have to become a macroeconomist to know what's going to happen in the future. And look, you don't have to, but it's wise to get into this. I remember if you told me this stuff 10 years ago, I would have hated it. Then I still dislike that this is that I need to do this for my own personal finances. This is why we need to separate state from money. I've heard plenty of people talking about this and that. Oh, we just need, if only the Federal Reserve or if only the Australian government. Why should the Australian government have any interest in interest rates? And it's like, why do we have people fucking with interest rates? What are interest rates? Why do we do this? It makes me annoyed. Anyway, looks like there's going to be capital and liquidity unlocks coming soon. Event and discovery. Well, Bitcoin was a game changer. Perhaps slightly less so than the internet, but still a massive, massive game changer. And why I think there's going to be one happening now is ChatGPT. It was exploding right at the start of 2023, and we're starting to see these two. So this is the first time we're going to have crypto and AI merging together, and we're starting to see this with memes and AI crypto coins exploding in value, which are essentially just ChatGPT wrappers, from what I gather at this stage. But they are going to integrate, and there are going to be agents which are capable of more complex behavior than what bots can do. So I certainly think that is the start of this bubble beginnings. The economic tools. And so if you don't realize here, everything that I talked about previously, I'm now just transferring that into what I think I'm seeing now and what I think we'll likely keep seeing. I addressed these live comments just quickly as well, which was one was saying the skyscraper index has some statistical relevance in the sense that historical correlations exist between the completion of record-breaking skyscrapers and economic downturns. I think he's just chucking this in the GPT, man. And he says thanks for everyone who supported in, which is very much appreciated. He's jumping off because he needs to go on Aussie Day Barbecue, which is what I'm hosting. Also why I need to keep this slightly shorter. I align with Peter slightly like an open in the scam. And only way Kyrin is getting 9 figures net worth soon is if he learns macro. Well, that's not happening. I don't want 9 figures. That's too much. In any case, economic tools. I think AI and crypto will bring huge changes. I regularly use the Lightning Network with BTC. Every time I travel, I feel way more secure knowing that I have access to my net worth wherever I go in the world. I also do this in a way where if you stop me on the street, you're not being able to get that because I can't get it. But there are ways I can of actually being able to save money. So just putting it in a certain place and letting it sit and not having to learn all this economic bullshit, having actual hard money. One is seeing huge savings of time and money in a side business related to the actual AI. He hasn't hired a lot of people that he would have needed to hire with his side business. So there are certain undeniable productivity gains from all of these things. And so I think that is the underpinning of what this bubble is going to be. Lighter regulation. You can see this with the recent election of pro-crypto. I was going to say BTC politicians, but man, does it turn on a dime. People, if you think your politician is going to stick to their word or do what you would like, you are absolutely insane. But the tide certainly is turning, and they are saying nicer things now. So they're less likely to do negative, impactful things until they do. Just you wait. If you're on the AI train, boy oh boy, is that tide is going to turn so quick. At some point, at what point I don't know, but they are going to clamp down on that hardcore. So just keep that in mind. Talking about things like a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Once again, is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't care. On-ramps and off-ramps are easing access. So Binance, for example, now accepts Australian deposits again. They didn't allow that for a time period. And there were certain Australian banks where they would not let you send Australian fiat to a crypto company. From what I gather, those are mostly, if not all, been wiped away because people want access to it. So the regulation is getting lighter. Retail access, man, this has never been easier with places like Revolut. You can just go on your phone. See if I can bring this up quickly. But on one of the main screens on Revolut, which is just like a neobank, if you're a traveler, you've probably used this or heard of this before. And essentially, all you have to do is go into the app, upload some money, and then I'm just trying to see if I can get this iris thing going. Here we go. Not good financial or security practices to do what I'm about to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because I've only got $72 in here. But you see on your little screen here, and then what's this tab right down the bottom? Crypto. You just go onto there, and bam, you can buy something super quick, easy. It's crazy how easy it is now compared to even just 4 years ago. A recent exchange I used sent me an email detailing why the problem I had would take a little while due to a huge influx of onboarding, wallets becoming more intuitive and all-in-one places like the Phantom wallet, ETFs for the institutional side of things, and like media-wise, independent voices have never been bigger. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp. If people want to shill, they can shill, and that's definitely going to happen. And it's going to spread really, 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 really quickly. So yeah, watch out for that. Look out for that. We also have, jumping on to the next slide here, the bubble growing and strengthening. So leverage and credit. Well, DeFi, you can do shit like get 50x leverage on Hyperliquid. Coinbase was saying how they're now going to start allowing you to do loans on BTC collateral, which will definitely unlock a whole lot of Bitcoiners who perhaps aren't the pure maxis, but who want loans on their Bitcoin without having to sell. They're going to do that. Lingo and buzzwords. I mean, I'll try and do this quick. Aping, degen, rug pull, wrecked, mooning, diamond hands, max, flippening, hard fork, soft fork, KOL, key opinion leader, FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt, DOYR, do your own research, ICO, initial coin offering, DeFi, decentralized finance, DEX or SEX, decentralized or centralized exchange, DApp, decentralized app, HODL, this holding on for dear life, or that I think that's a backronym of just hold, WAGME or NIGME, which is we are going to make it or not going to make it. POS, POW, proof of stake, proof of work. And I'm not even in the trenches to know the more ridiculous recent stuff, but you can bet your ass there's more lingo coming, particularly on the AI side of things, I reckon. Starting to see some ridiculous claims. And where are we right now in the cycle? I think we're bang straight in the middle of the bubble growing and strengthening area. One I heard recently was that there was an AI crypto agent running an Ethereum node. This is just so stupid, because whatever autonomy you think this thing has of running it is nothing. To illustrate this, I know a pretty smart dude here in Brisbane. Met him a couple of times. Frank, shout out to Frank. And he's got a node. He runs a node, and you know, he's the type of person who likes to automate things. If a problem can be solved through automation, he'll do it. And I was chatting with him recently, and he's got all of these systems set up to notify him when his node is doing something unexpected, some behavior's happening. Man, his thing is just pinging off like crazy. There's no way that an agent is being able to fix all of this stuff if a dude like him is still having to manually fix a lot of problems that are coming up with this. Is so dumb. So claims like that, definitely getting some like those. And I believe we're going to start hearing signs that they are solving capital allocation, this being the AI agents. Agents are going to be the number one users of blockchains, not humans, EJAZ. Once again, this is like, it's kind of ridiculous right now. In the future, maybe. But to say that right now, you know, and he says are going to be, so I guess to preface with that. My favorite one, Uranus in Taurus, sextile Saturn in Pisces transit is poised to revolutionize the financial landscape. There's this dude called Crypto Astro. He does astrology, zodiac signs, things like that, to predict crypto prices. I think that is, look, astrology, in my opinion, is total horseshit. Mixing that with being able to predict crypto is hilarious though, and I love the dude for doing it. So good on you, Crypto Astro. May Saturn in Pisces give me financial gains. Ideas out the wazoo. Meme coins will solve XYZ problem. My brother just got a rewards card for Qantas. Nope, that'll be solved with Qantas coin. I've got a Woolworths card that gives me points for shopping at the certain area. Nah, points, a card, on chain, baby. It's going to be on chain. Every login and password becoming a public-private key pair. You know, not all of this is necessarily stupid and infeasible. It's just a lot of them are. And I think we're starting to really see some of these now. The hucksters, look, you're going to get continual grifting of people like Justin Sun. That dude is the slipperiest of snakes. How he just keeps flying under the radar or over the radar or through the radar, I don't know, but man, that dude, good on him. Razzle Khan, if you remember her, she was part of the two scammers who, not scammers, they hacked into one of the big, is it Bitfinex? I can't remember which one exactly. Anyway, they took a lot of money. And she's about to go to prison, and she's still dropping singles for a rapping career. So you definitely have people like her. Definitely a new breed's going to pop up. If I have to name names, I'm going to say something like Mega ETH. project. I just got bad juju vibes from that. And of course, I expect shilling from none other than the DJT himself, Donald J. Trump, who's already starting to do this. So you got crazy stuff just coming with the hucksters, influencers. Well, Trump and Crow just essentially gave the green light for anybody with an audience to do this with the Trump meme coin. Good Lord, that's going to unleash some crazy shit. This will vary culturally and predominantly be in the US, I think, due to their brazen shamelessness and getting attention. Both a good thing and bad thing. The US dominates media. There's no doubt about that. Yet the way they do it, I don't like a lot of it. Nevertheless, that's what happens. A good one to look at is Ron's Basement and Unicorn Fart Dust. This was a dude who was a gold and silver bug, and he would do live streams of talking about gold and silver. Created a meme coin out for a laugh, sure, why not? It got popular, and now he just shills it constantly. And that was like a month ago, and he's ditched his old audience and is just all in on this meme. That's the type of influences we're going to see, and is starting to happen. So yeah, that's a bubble growing and strengthening. We're right in the thick of it. Future present value mix up. We're definitely going to have the inevitable APR, unsustainable yield farming again, with a twist. I think that this time it'll be based on restaking of ETH and Sol. That wasn't possible last time. And perhaps even things like using the BTC annual growth as gospel. You can't have infinite growth. And so if you say, BTC grows annually at 60% a year, that's true. Can it keep doing that? No, it can't, because that will consume everything. So if you use that number to say this is what's likely going to happen in the future, I think that's disingenuous, and you probably should say it's probably going to be less. It'll still probably be pretty high, but just not as much. We have the new entrants coming. This is going to be anyone and everyone. I was looking up some numbers in terms of saturation levels for social media. TikTok has 3 times the number of users compared to 2021, for example. I think it's going to be hard to avoid seeing shilling and just general financial AI crypto stuff. If you're a user of social media, I think it's just going to be everywhere, and more people than ever now have a smartphone. So yeah, I keep hearing and seeing financial apathy videos as well, both intentionally and not, of people saying like, I can't get ahead, the system's rigged against me. I think those, when they're hopeless, they're willing to invest, speculate, and gamble. My brother recently, he came across a dude in the gym trading whilst working out. Oh yeah, there's new entrants. There's new entrants coming in. Complex financial shenanigans. Now, it's hard to hide on-chain data. So it will be the sexes and the like centralized exchanges that will offer ever-increasing products to attract capital. 100% that's going to happen. Crypto companies starting to IPO, and I think they're going to likely start engaging in weird financial practices. That may or may not sting them. I don't know for sure about that, but it's certainly going to get more financially complex really quickly. And I think this will be boosted by relaxing regulations, allowing people like Gary Vee to promise more with his NFTs as the definition of securities become hazier. Well, complex is not always bad. It's just a bit. This, once again, this is gray, murky areas. What is complex things like launching a rocket to space is good. Yet, when it comes to the financial sector, I'm not so sure. I'm just not so sure on that. Anyway, in real life meetups, I mean, what better place than Las Vegas for the 2025 Bitcoin conference? I saw enough opulence at the 2024 Nashville to already irk me. And I'm talking about you, Cybertruck, with the Taproot Wizards and Thorchain shit on the side of it. There's something about the flashiness in real life meetups that, yeah, once again, grosses me out. But People can do what they want to. Local meetups, I expect these to get bigger and spend more. There'll be more parties. I met a girl at the gym the other day who has some bags of random stuff, and when I see her in the gym now, she'll talk to me about crypto. Usually she'll bring it up. I haven't been bringing it up. I try and keep it on the down low. And I think that's just going to keep happening. Just more in real life meetups for sure. What will happen with the circularity? I think we're seeing a good example of this with the master. So this being the MicroStrategy. Its premium goes up because BTC does, and it can borrow money against the master shares / its BTC to buy more BTC, which helps it go up in price. Other companies are going to start doing this for sure. Will they do it as good as him? Will they be able to survive the inevitable bear market that comes? I predict not. Will it? I don't know. But when things go up so rapidly, so crazily, there's usually warning signs to be looking out for there as well. And then we get into the popping zone. So that was the bubble strengthening and growing. Job changes. So last cycle, I knew a lawyer friend who gave up law and got wrecked by FTX. I already met a girl this cycle, hasn't worked for 3 months due to profits. I expect more of this to start happening, with the twist that some of this is going to be linked to not job losses due to AI, but just shortages. One, for example, his company, for example, him and his business partner, or I'm not sure exactly what their business partner, they have not hired people. They haven't fired people because it was a new company, but they haven't hired people. And so I think things like that, we're going to see people actually just not having jobs because there's less coming out. And yeah, they'll turn to something that will bring them some money. And if they're making a little bit from crypto, I know another dude at the gym. Man, the gym, it's just full of degenerates. And he was showing some interest in getting back into it, and he's just got a PT job, but who knows? He's certainly the type who, if he was making some money from it trading, I think he'd ditch that PT job and go trading. So we'll see. But it's not there yet. But I'm starting to see the little inklings of that. The linked failures. This is mostly just likely due to price declining quickly and people getting forced to sell, not wanting to sell. And you saw this with like FTX. It happened after the peak of the bubble. So was that the bubble popping on the way down? Had it already been popped, and this was just a rapid deflation? If we're going to talk about instead of a bubble, it being a balloon, perhaps. I think some big centralized exchange will get exposed or hacked. As usual, it'll be individual investors who get hurt. Some unjustly, some rightly so. I don't think there's anything new here. The linked failures, that's pretty common. Illogical behavior. Once again, a lot of suspension of normal doubt as people just trust AI and its hallucinations. Price predictions. I see a lot of people saying like, BTC will be 200 to 300, somewhere around that range, or 150 to 200. I feel like it's going to blow past those, and then they're just going to up their numbers to like 1 million or something like that. A meme coin probably crossing 12 figures, so that'll get into the hundreds of billions. Token launches from centralized companies. This is actually probably a big one. Token launches from centralized companies with no purpose behind the token. It's only nice for financial reports. The similar companies buying BTC just to get a stock price pump that we talked about with the Microsoft strategy. I think there'll be lots of behavior which is immediate good news looking things, which will pump something, but will have no actual underlying efficiency, productivity benefits. I think there's going to be a lot of that going on. Dodgy arbitrage. I suspect we'll see some people trying to do this with AI agents. So not just bots that will go AWOL and lose a bunch of money. That's one of my predictions. Negative trigger. I wouldn't be surprised if a major chain has an extended outage. Looking at Solana, but maybe a newer one like Sui, which is gaining popularity. probably in the works for the biggest bridge hack yet as well. Always the possibility of natural wars, of wars, natural disasters, and assassinations. I think an AI agent's gonna rug pull a coin. I think that's gonna happen this cycle. I'm gonna put that out there, and that one will be funny as fuck when it happens. If it happens, when it happens, man, that would be funny. This time it's different. This time the super cycle is real because institutions and governments are involved, bro. Another similar reason to this would be how AI is going to make everything super productive. GDP growth will outpace debt repayment, so you don't need to worry. Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to happen. Risk downplaying. We're going to have blue chip meme coins. People always. I've seen some of that already. Blue chip AI coins. I haven't seen that yet. That'll probably happen. Definitely a lot more of like ABC person owns XYZ and they are smart/rich, so it's safe. Forgetting the principles of not your keys, not your coins. That's certainly going to happen and is what will be in the popping zone, I think. The wealth flaunting, Lambo sales rising. I'd probably suspect an NFT sale higher than Pax and Beeple's previous of high 8 figures of, I think it was like 96 million US and 58 or something like that. Probably deep into the 9 figures this time. Crypto borrows, buying yachts, penthouses, airplanes, just the general wealth flaunting shit that happens. That's probably going to happen. And yeah, we're talking of Hosky. If Hosky actually does make me any money, I would maybe buy a Hosky number plate as a laugh. So if I do that, Jesus Christ, watch out, people. Eccentric billionaires. I think after SBF, people are going to be on the watch for this. So perhaps it's less tolerant of it. Nevertheless, you see Elon Musk and his fake gaming is pretty cringe. And he's likely to pump Doge. So something along those lines of, it's Elon Musk, he's doing this person's doing that. That'll be in the popping zone area. But maybe we'll get a new billionaire cohort to come through and do weird shit, and people think like they're a genius. Oh my god! Word of mouth as well in the popping zone. I think this is the best metric. It was just simply overhearing conversation where people are talking about it. Now there's all sorts of on-chain measures you can use. Percent of people in profit, new wallet creation, X amount of holders, there's all sorts of graphs and things you can check out for that, as well as social indicators, crypto app downloads, Google search trends, the fear and greed index staying in the high 90s, all of that sort of stuff. I don't, know too much about it. Am I going to follow that? Maybe, I don't know. But that sort of stuff I think is, if you're serious about the bubble popping zone, looking out for those sorts of things are probably in that same area as well. Scam signs, I'm going to skip this section here because we'll talk about that with Juan later. And we'll finish this podcast off. Value for value. Thank you everyone for joining in on this episode of the Mere Mortals solo-sode of Kyrin's financial learnings from a book on financial bubbles. That was a really, I'd highly recommend that book, Devil Take The Hindmost by Edward Chancellor. I've done a book review of it if you don't want to read the book. All those notes in the first section are what I took from that, and then applying those exact same metrics, criteria, perhaps is a better word, to where I think we are now and what's likely to happen with a big crypto AI thing. I would love to know your thoughts. Am I off the deep end? Is this actually not going to happen? Is there not going to be any crypto AI bubble, or is there going to be a super cycle and it'll just keep going? I'd love to know all of these things. I'm putting like a general timeline of that of 6 to 18 months, but that's so vague as well that it's probably not too helpful to you if you're listening in. Time, talent, and treasure is how you can help support the Mere Mortals, because we're not going to have any ads nor sponsorships. Mere Mortals Conversations is what we're going to rebrand this to. So no ads, no sponsorships, none of that sort of stuff on here. So we just ask that you help contribute to the show. You could do this by word of mouth. If you found this useful, sending this on to someone who might also get some benefit from this, or sharing it via social media. Talent. What do you reckon? Are any of these points illogical that I made? Do you think that they're... I'd love to know your thoughts on all of these things. So you can do that by reaching out by any of our social media areas, on this video itself, on anywhere. And then finally, treasure. There's a PayPal link down below if you want to send in some schmeckles to help support the Mere Mortals. Peter in the chat here says, I've started to believe in the super cycle in the last cycle. Well, that didn't happen. The super cycle is a weird one because it's... I think you could justify like a lower volatility, like things won't dump as much as they used to, but there's certainly I still think there's going to be a rapid rise up, exuberance, people going crazy, and then a really rapid fall as well. That's what I expect, but we'll see. meremodelspodcast.com/support is where we've got the description of how you could support us with a Boostagram, like Peter did just before, and he's all the way in Canada. Seems so plausible at the time. Doesn't it always? You think like this stuff's gonna... I mean, look, and you, if I came across high and mighty in any of this, I want you to know I have made poor financial investments through tons of periods of my life. This, I wasn't really talking about actually investing in any of this stuff. This is kind of just what I kind of predict is going to happen. But I've certainly made, money where your mouth is sort of thing. When I first found about boostergrams, I thought this shit was revolutionary technology that's going to change the world instantly. And I was wrong on that. I was talking with Juan on this podcast, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I was like, value for value. That's what's going to drive the 2025 bull market. No one cares about value for value. It's a philosophy, not a technology. It's something that's very hard. I think it's something that will eventually change the world for a better place. And is undoubtedly a good thing, but it takes time. You can't just have stuff going parabolic and affecting the world instantly. And he says, but I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong on many things, my friend, as well. It's getting hot here, man. I gotta go and prepare these last little bits for the Australia Day barbecue. So Australia Day, Aussie, 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 oi, 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 all of those good things. So I'm going to end it off here. Thank you very much, Juan and Peter, for joining in. Thank you much, Peter and Lyceum Martin, for contributing into the show. It's very much appreciated. 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Time on a Sunday is when Juan and I do these. We will be back at it next week. And as usual, I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Ciao for now. Kyrin out. Bye.